No footprints, no sound. And yet, someone was already inside the perimeter. She slept with a rifle pressed against her ribs while the others mocked her as unstable. They thought she'd cracked, lost it, became the liability. But when dawn broke over Iron Hollow, the enemy infiltration team had vanished, retreated into the snow like ghosts who'd been caught mid-breath. They had been 3 seconds from disaster.
And the soldier they had ridiculed all week? She was the only reason any of them were still breathing. Before we dive in, stick with me till the end of this story. If it pulls you in, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far these stories travel. Now, let's go back to the beginning.
The cold in Iron Hollow didn't just bite. It carved. It peeled back skin, numbed fingertips, turned breath into visible ghosts that hung in the air before dying. The kind of cold that made you wonder if your body would just stop. If hypothermia was a choice your cells might make without asking permission. Lena Voss felt it through 3 layers of thermal gear as she lay on her cot, M24 sniper rifle cradled against her chest like a sleeping child. The weapon was cold, unforgiving. The sling bit into her shoulder where it had worn a permanent groove over the years. Metal kissed her ribs through the fabric, a reminder that stayed consistent even when everything else shifted. Around her, the rest of 2nd Platoon slept, or tried to. Boots scraped canvas. Someone coughed, wet, phlegmy. The tent smelled like unwashed bodies, gun oil, and the particular staleness that came from 12 soldiers breathing the same recycled air for 72 hours straight. Outside, wind screamed across the basin. Inside, Specialist Marcus Webb was staring at her again. "You gonna marry that thing, Voss?" His voice cut through the dim tent, loud enough to pull a few grunts from the half asleep. Lena didn't turn her head, didn't blink, just kept her gaze fixed on the canvas ceiling, watching condensation bead and drip. "Already did," she said flatly. "You're invited to the reception, no +1. Someone snorted. Probably Kowalski. He thought everything was funny until it wasn't. Webb sat up on his cot, springs creaking. "Seriously, though, Reg say rifles get racked at night. You've been sleeping with that thing for 3 days like it's gonna run off." "Maybe it will." That's not an answer. Wasn't a question. Silence dropped between them, the kind that felt heavier than it should. Webb wasn't wrong. Standard operating procedure said weapons stayed secured on the rack unless you were on watch or under direct threat. Lena had ignored that order since the moment they'd set up camp in this frozen basin. No explanation, no excuse, just non-compliance. And in a military unit where trust was the difference between operational and dead, that kind of behavior looked like a crack in the foundation. "Lieutenant's gonna smoke you for that," Webb pressed. "You know he is." "Then he smokes me."
Jesus, Voss. Webb shook his head, lay back down. "You're making this weird for everyone. Weird's better than dead. We're in a rear staging area. There's no contact within 50 clicks. What the hell are you worried about?" Lena finally turned her head, just enough to catch Webb's silhouette in the low light. "You ever notice how the things that kill you are always the ones nobody's worried about?" Webb stared at her for a long moment. Then he rolled over, pulled his blanket tighter. "You're paranoid." "Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely." His voice was muffled now, fading into sleep. "You've been off since Kandahar. Everyone sees it. You should talk to someone." Lena didn't respond. What was there to say? That Webb was right? That Kandahar had rewired something fundamental in her brain, turned her into the kind of soldier who couldn't let go of a weapon even when logic said it was safe? Or that logic was a luxury you only got to enjoy until the moment it killed you? She closed her eyes, listened to the wind, and beneath it, just barely, she heard the thing that didn't belong. Lieutenant Carter Hale was 29 years old, West Point educated, and had the kind of clean-shaven confidence that came from never having been truly wrong about anything that mattered. He ran 2nd Platoon like a textbook, by the numbers, by the book, by the chain of command that had kept the U.S. Army functional for 2.5 centuries. Which meant Lena Voss was a problem. He found her the next morning outside the tent, field stripping her rifle in the snow. Her hands moved with mechanical precision,
Bolt out, barrel clear, chamber inspected. The kind of muscle memory that didn't require thought.
Voss? She didn't look up. Sir? You know why I'm here? Got a few guesses. Hale stopped a few feet away, hands on his hips. His breath fogged in the air between them. I've let it slide for 3 days. That's generous. You've been in long enough to know what secure your weapon means. I have secured it. Lena reassembled the bolt assembly, slid it home with a metallic click. Just not where you want it. That's not how this works. Respectfully, sir, it's how I work. Hale's jaw tightened. He was used to soldiers who pushed back with attitude, sarcasm, even outright defiance. But Lena wasn't doing any of that. Her tone was calm, professional, which somehow made it worse. You're undermining unit cohesion, he said carefully. The others see you breaking regs. They start wondering why they should follow them. They follow them because you tell them to. I'm not their example. You're part of this unit. That makes you everyone's example. Hale crouched down, meeting her eye level. Talk to me. What's going on? Is this a PTSD thing? Because if it is, we can get you help. There's no shame. It's not PTSD. Then what? Lena slid the barrel back into the receiver, locked it down. Her hands were steady. Her voice was steadier. It's preparation. For what? For when something goes wrong. Hale studied her face, looking for cracks, signs of instability, anything that would justify pulling her off the line. But all he saw was focus. The kind of focus that didn't waver. Nothing's going to go wrong here, he said quietly. We're 60 kilometers from the nearest hostile zone. We've got overwatch, air support on call, and a full perimeter. This is as safe as it gets. Kandahar was safe too. There it was. The fracture line. Hale's expression shifted, not to pity, but to something closer to understanding. I read the after-action report. What happened there wasn't your fault. Didn't say it was. Then why are you acting like it was? Lena finished reassembling the rifle, slung it across her back, and stood. Because fault doesn't matter when you're the one left standing, sir. Only preparation does. She walked past him toward the mess tent, boots crunching through snow. Hale didn't stop her, but he didn't forget the conversation either. Sergeant Dax Rowan was the kind of NCO who'd been in long enough to have opinions about everything and just enough rank to voice them without getting smoked. He found Hale near the command tent an hour later, both of them nursing coffee that tasted like burnt dirt. She's making the squad nervous, Rowan said without preamble. I know. Webb thinks she's unstable. Kowalski thinks she's paranoid. Martinez just thinks she's weird. And you? Rowan took a sip, grimaced. I think she's scared, and I think she's too proud to admit it. Hale nodded slowly. Kandahar. Yeah. Lost her spotter. Kid was 22, fresh out of sniper school. Took an IED on a supply run while Voss was stateside on leave. She wasn't even in country when it happened, but she blames herself for not being there. That's survivor's guilt, not tactical instinct. Maybe. Or maybe it taught her something the rest of us haven't learned yet. Rowan crushed his paper cup, tossed it into a burn barrel. You ever notice how the soldiers who've seen the worst shit are the ones who prepare for it the most? That's paranoia by another name. Or wisdom. Hale didn't have a response to that. They stood in silence, watching snow fall across the basin. Iron Hollow looked peaceful, almost serene. The kind of place where nothing bad could happen because nothing ever did. You filing a report? Rowan asked. Not yet. But you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about a lot of things. Hale turned toward him. If she doesn't comply by tomorrow night, I'm pulling her off watch rotation. Can't have a soldier who won't follow basic orders. Even if she's your best shooter? Especially if she's my best shooter. Because if she breaks, she takes everyone with her. Rowan nodded slowly. Your call, LT. But as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that Hale was solving the wrong problem. Guang. Night fell like a curtain. The temperature dropped another 15 degrees. Ice formed on the inside of the tent walls. Breath turned to frost on beards, eyebrows, the exposed skin around necks and wrists. Lena lay on her cot, rifle against her chest, eyes half open. Around her, the platoon settled into sleep. Webb was snoring. Kowalski muttered something about his ex-wife.
Martinez shifted, blanket rustling. Outside, the wind howled, and beneath it, silence. Not the absence of sound, the wrong kind of silence. Lena's eyes snapped fully open. She didn't move, didn't shift, just listened. The dogs. Iron Hollow had a small contingent of working dogs, German shepherds trained for patrol and detection. They'd been barking intermittently all week, startled by wind or wildlife or their own shadows. Tonight, nothing. Lena's pulse ticked up, not panic, just awareness. She sat up slowly, carefully, keeping the rifle sling from clinking. Across the tent, nobody stirred. They were all deep in that heavy sleep that came from exhaustion and cold. She slipped out of her cot, boots already laced, and moved toward the tent flap. "Where are you going?" The voice was quiet, controlled. Lena turned to see Rowan sitting up on his cot, watching her. "Perimeter check," she whispered. "That's not your watch." "Can't sleep." Rowan studied her for a moment, then he lay back down. "Don't do anything stupid." Define stupid. "Anything that makes me do paperwork." Lena almost smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." She slipped outside. The cold hit her like a physical force. Wind tore across the basin, carrying snow in horizontal sheets that stung exposed skin. Lena pulled her balaclava up, adjusted her rifle sling, and started moving along the perimeter. Iron Hollow was a natural depression surrounded by low ridges, defensible, sheltered, but also a potential trap if someone controlled the high ground. The camp was arranged in a rough circle, command tent at the center, squad tents radiating outward, vehicle park on the western edge, supply depot on the east. Sentries rotated every 4 hours. Right now, Private Chen was supposed to be on the eastern berm. Lena found him huddled behind a snow barrier, rifle across his lap, breath fogging his goggles. "Quiet night?" she asked. Chen jumped, swung his rifle halfway up before recognizing her. "Jesus, Voss, you trying to give me a heart attack?" "Just checking in. I'm fine, cold as hell, but fine." "You see anything?" "Like what?" "Anything." Chen shook his head. "It's dead out here. Even the wind sounds bored." Lena scanned the eastern ridge. Snow drifted in patterns, natural, chaotic, shaped by wind and gravity. Nothing stood out. Nothing looked wrong. But the dogs were still silent. "You hear the working dogs tonight?" she asked. Chen frowned. "Now that you mention it, no." "That's weird. Those things bark at everything." "Yeah." "You think something's wrong?" Lena didn't answer. She was watching the snow. Not the surface. The pattern. Wind didn't blow in straight lines. It eddied, swirled, created random drifts and hollows. But there, just past the berm, maybe 40 meters out, the snow looked brushed. Like something had moved through it carefully, deliberately, trying to erase its passage, but not quite succeeding. "Chen." "Yeah?" "When's the last time you saw tracks out there?" "I don't know, hour ago, maybe 2. Hard to tell with the wind." "Any animal tracks?" "A few. Rabbits, maybe?" "Nothing big." Lena pulled her scope up, scanned the area. Thermal imaging showed nothing but cold ground and colder air, but thermal didn't catch everything, especially if someone knew how to mask their heat signature. "I'm gonna walk the line," she said. "Want company?" "Nah, stay on post. If you see anything at all, you radio it in immediately. Don't wait to confirm, just call it." Chen nodded slowly. "You're freaking me out a little, Voss." "Good. Freaked out keeps you alive." She moved east along the perimeter, boots crunching through snow, rifle ready but not raised. The wind covered most sound, which was both a blessing and a curse. She could move quietly, but so could anyone else. At the northeastern corner, she stopped. There. Faint, almost invisible, but definitely there. A disturbance in the snow, too linear to be natural, too deliberate to be wind. It curved around a rock outcropping, disappeared into the gorge that cut through the eastern ridge. Lena crouched, examined it closer. No boot prints, no clear tracks, just compression. Like something heavy had passed through, careful to avoid leaving obvious marks. She keyed her radio. "Voss to command." Static crackled. Then Rowan's voice, sleep rough. "Go ahead." "I've got a potential disturbance on the eastern perimeter. Possible movement through the gorge."
Pause. Define possible. Snow pattern's wrong. No tracks, but the drift looks brushed. Could be wind, could be something else. Another pause, longer this time. You see anything on thermal? Negative. Any sound? Negative. So you've got wind-blown snow and a hunch. Lena felt the weight of that statement, how it sounded, how it looked, the paranoid sniper seeing threats in shadows. Affirmative, she said quietly. Copy. Stay on it. Report if anything changes. Roger. The radio clicked off. Lena stayed crouched, watching the gorge. Wind howled through it, carrying snow in ghostly spirals. Nothing moved, nothing changed. But the dogs were still silent, and in her gut, that place where instinct lived, she knew. Something was wrong. Done. Morning came gray and cold. Lena returned to the tent just before dawn, rifle still in hand, eyes gritty from lack of sleep. The platoon was stirring, blankets rustling, boots being laced, the low grumble of soldiers waking up to another day of frozen misery. Webb saw her first. Rough night? He asked, not unkindly. Standard. You sleep at all? Some. Liar. She didn't argue, just sat on her cot, began field stripping her rifle again. The routine was meditative, calming, a task her hands could do while her mind processed. Hale appeared in the tent entrance, clipboard in hand. Morning brief in 10. Everyone up. Groans rippled through the tent. Soldiers dragged themselves vertical, started the slow transformation from sleeping bags to functional humans. Lena reassembled her rifle, slung it across her back. Webb leaned close. You're going to get yourself relieved, you know that? Probably. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with being alive. Same thing, isn't it? Not even close. The brief was short. Standard operational updates. Weather forecast, cold, colder, coldest. Supply status, adequate. Patrol schedules, routine. Hale ran through it mechanically, professional but detached. Then he looked at Lena. Voss, you filed a disturbance report last night. Every head turned. Yes, sir. Care to elaborate? Eastern perimeter showed signs of possible movement. Snow patterns inconsistent with natural wind drift. No thermal signature, no sound, no tracks. Could be nothing, could be something. And you think it's something. It wasn't a question. I think it's worth watching, Lena said carefully. Hale nodded slowly. Rowan, double the Eastern watch tonight. 2-man teams, overlapping shifts. If there's anything out there, we'll catch it. Yes, sir. Voss, you're off watch rotation until further notice. The tent went silent. Lena felt it like a punch. Not the order itself, but what it meant. She was being benched, sidelined, labeled unreliable. Understood, sir. Hale's expression didn't change. You'll report to Sergeant Rowan for camp maintenance duties. Dismissed. The platoon filed out slowly, conversations hushed. Lena stayed seated, rifle across her lap. Rowan lingered near the entrance. You knew this was coming, he said quietly. Doesn't make it easier. You could have just racked the rifle, followed orders, made everyone's life simpler. Yeah, so why didn't you? Lena looked up at him. Because 3 seconds is all it takes, Sergeant. 3 seconds between having your weapon and not. Between being ready and being dead. I've seen what happens when you're on the wrong side of those 3 seconds. Kandahar, Fallujah, Mosul. Doesn't matter where. The math's always the same. Rowan nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I don't think you're crazy. Just paranoid? Paranoid keeps you breathing. Crazy gets you killed. He turned to leave, then stopped. Keep your head down, Voss. Do your time on maintenance. Maybe this blows over. And if it doesn't, then we deal with it when it happens. He left. Lena sat alone in the empty tent, rifle in her arms, listening to the wind scream across Iron Hollow. The dogs were barking again. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Chikum. The rest of the day passed in cold, mechanical routine. Lena hauled supplies, checked inventory, helped Martinez repair a busted generator housing. The work was mindless, physical, designed to keep soldiers busy when there was nothing tactical to do.
But her mind never stopped working. She watched the eastern ridge whenever she could, studied the snow, tracked the wind. Small details others ignored, she cataloged them all. At 1400 hours, the radio squawked. Command to all units, weather advisory. Major front moving in tonight. Expect wind gusts up to 60 kilometers per hour, visibility near zero. Batten down and stay inside unless absolutely necessary. Perfect cover. The thought came unbidden, automatic. If she were planning an infiltration, she'd use weather like this. Low visibility, high noise, natural chaos to mask movement. She found Rowan near the command tent. "Sergeant?" He looked up from a supply manifest. "Voss? You're supposed to be on generator duty." "Generator's fixed. I need to talk to you." "About?" "Tonight." Rowan set down the clipboard. "What about it?" "If I wanted to breach this camp, I'd do it during the storm. Use the wind for cover, visibility for concealment. Hit the supply depot or the vehicle park, sabotage what I could, extract before anyone noticed." "That's a lot of ifs." "It's how I'd do it." "You're not them." "No, but I think like them. That's why I'm here." Rowan studied her face. "You really think something's coming?" "I think we're assuming we're safe because we want to be, not because we actually are. And if you're wrong, then I'm wrong. But if I'm right and nobody listens..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Rowan sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "I'll talk to the LT, get him to authorize extra patrols during the storm." "He won't." "You don't know that. He thinks I'm compromised. Anything I suggest, he'll dismiss." "Then what do you want me to do?" Lena met his eyes. "Let me keep my rifle." "Voss, not for watch, not for duty. Just let me have it. If something happens, you'll want every shooter you've got. You know that." Rowan was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay, but you stay in the tent unless ordered otherwise. No patrols, no heroics. Just be ready. That's all I'm asking." "And Voss? Yeah? If you're wrong about this, if nothing happens and you've just been chasing ghosts, you're done. Hale will have you transferred out before the snow melts. You understand that?" "I understand." "Good. Get some rest. It's going to be a long night." Lena nodded, turned to leave. But rest was the last thing on her mind. Night fell early, swallowed by the storm. Wind screamed through Iron Hollow like something alive and furious. Snow came down in blinding sheets, erasing the world beyond 10 meters. Visibility dropped to near zero. Even the perimeter lights were useless, just halos of white in an endless void. Inside the tent, the platoon huddled close. Someone had rigged a small heater, technically against regs, but nobody cared anymore. The cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Hypothermia didn't need permission. Lena lay on her cot, rifle cradled against her chest, eyes closed but not sleeping. Around her, conversations drifted. Low, tired, the kind of talk that happened when boredom outweighed exhaustion. "Think this storm lasts all night?" Kowalski asked nobody in particular. "Probably," Martinez answered. "Weather report said through 600 at least. Great, just great. Love freezing my ass off in the middle of nowhere. Could be worse, could be summer." "Summer?" "Yeah, imagine doing this in August. Heat, bugs, humidity. I'd take bugs over frostbite." "You say that now." Webb's voice cut through. "Voss, you awake?" She didn't open her eyes. "Yeah." "Still think something's coming?" "Yeah." "Even with this storm?" "Especially with this storm." "That's paranoid. That's tactical." Webb laughed. Short, sharp. "You know what your problem is? You think too much. See patterns that aren't there. My dad used to say sometimes a shadow's just a shadow. And sometimes it's something wearing the shadow like a coat." Silence. Then Rowan's voice, quiet from his cot. "Everyone shut up and get some sleep. Long night ahead." Conversations died, blankets rustled. The tent settled into the rhythm of breathing and wind. Lena opened her eyes. Through a narrow gap in the canvas, she could see outside, just barely. Snow poured down in endless curtains. The perimeter lights were distant ghosts. The world had shrunk to this tent, this moment, this breath. And somewhere beyond the storm, movement. Not wind, not natural, something deliberate. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. And in the howling darkness of Iron Hollow, the enemy began their approach. Lena's breathing slowed to match the wind, in through the nose, out through barely parted lips. Her finger rested alongside the trigger guard. Not on it. Not yet. The M24 was cold enough to burn skin, but she'd stopped feeling it an hour ago. Through the gap in the canvas, the world was white chaos. Snow drove horizontal, then vertical, then swirled in patterns that defied physics. The kind of storm that made navigation impossible, made thermal imaging worthless, made every shadow a potential threat. Perfect infiltration weather. Her eyes tracked movement that wasn't there yet, training the brain to catch disruption in chaos. Most people looked for shapes. Lena looked for interruptions in pattern. A snowflake that fell wrong. A drift that formed backward. Wind that paused when it shouldn't. There. Just for a second, maybe less. Something in the snow moved against the wind. Not with it. Against. Lena's pulse didn't spike. That was the difference between panic and training. Panic flooded the system. Training narrowed it. She counted to 10. Watched. Waited. Nothing. Then, there again. 40 meters out, maybe 50. Low to the ground. The kind of movement that said, crawl, not walk. The kind that said, we know you're here and we're betting you don't know we are. She rolled slowly off her cot, boots already laced, rifle slung across her back. The movement was glacial, 1 inch at a time, waiting for fabric to settle before shifting weight again. Rowan's breathing pattern hadn't changed, still asleep. Webb snored softly 3 cots over. Kowalski muttered something about his ex-wife again. Apparently she lived rent-free in his subconscious. Lena moved toward the tent flap. Don't. The voice was so quiet she almost missed it. She froze, turned her head fractionally. Martinez was awake, sitting up on his cot, watching her with dark eyes that caught what little light existed. Don't what? She whispered back. Whatever you're about to do, don't. You're about to go outside in a whiteout storm because you think you saw something. And maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But either way, LT finds out you left the tent after being relieved of watch. You're done. Not transferred. Done. Lena held his gaze. Martinez was younger than her by 2 years, sharper than he pretended to be, and one of the few soldiers in the platoon who'd never mocked her rifle-sleeping habit. He just watched, evaluated, drew his own conclusions. You think I'm wrong? She asked. I think you're probably right, which is worse. How's that worse? Because if you're right and you go out there alone, you're the only one who sees what's coming. And if something happens to you, the rest of us are blind. He shifted, pulled his boots closer. You want to check the perimeter? Fine, but I'm coming with you. Martinez putsch. Not a debate, Voss. You go, I go. Otherwise I wake Rowan right now. She studied him for 3 long seconds. Calculated the angles. Martinez wasn't bluffing. She could see it in the set of his jaw, the way his hand rested near his rifle. Fine, she whispered. But we move quiet and we stay close. This isn't a patrol, it's a confirmation. Confirmed what? That I'm not crazy. Little late for that. Despite everything, Lena almost smiled. They slipped outside into the storm. The cold hit like a wall. Not gradual, not creeping, just immediate, total, the kind that made your lungs seize and your eyes water and your exposed skin scream. Wind tore across the basin at speeds that would knock an unprepared soldier flat. Lena pulled her balaclava tight, adjusted her goggles, and started moving east. Martinez followed 2 meters behind, rifle ready, movements careful. Visibility was maybe 5 meters. Beyond that, the world dissolved into white noise. They reached the eastern berm in 90 seconds. Should have taken 30, but the snow was knee-deep in places and the wind kept trying to shove them sideways. Lena dropped to a crouch behind the snow barrier Chen had been using earlier. Martinez pressed close, shouted over the wind, "What are we looking for?" Anything that doesn't belong. That's specific. You'll know it when you see it. Or I won't. Then follow my lead. She pulled up her scope, scanned the gorge. Thermal showed nothing but ambient cold. White on white, meaningless. She switched to standard optics, let her eyes adjust to the dark beyond the snow. The gorge cut through the eastern ridge like a surgical incision, narrow, steep-sided, the kind of terrain that funneled movement.
If someone wanted to approach the camp from the east without being seen from the northern or southern watch posts, the gorge was the only option, which meant it should have been the most heavily monitored approach.
But standard doctrine said no hostile force would attempt infiltration during a whiteout storm. Too risky. Too many variables. Too easy to get lost, disoriented, killed by the very weather you were trying to use as cover. Standard doctrine assumed the enemy was risk-averse. Lena had stopped believing in standard doctrine somewhere between Kandahar and the moment her spotter's casket had been lowered into frozen ground. "There," she said quietly. Martinez followed her sight line. "Where?" "Snow pattern. See how it's drifting left to right everywhere except that section? There it's broken, like something interrupted the flow. Could be a rock, could be wind eddy. Could be, but it wasn't there an hour ago." "You sure about that?" "Yeah." Martinez was silent for a moment, then, "What do you want to do?" "Watch, wait, confirm. And if you confirm, then we wake everybody up and hope we're not too late." They settled into position behind the berm. Wind screamed, snow poured. Minutes stretched into small eternities measured by frozen breath and creeping doubt. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was just wind and paranoia and a brain that saw patterns because finding patterns was what kept her alive in places where survival wasn't guaranteed. Then she saw it. Not movement, not shape, just wrongness. A section of snow maybe 30 meters out shifted in a way snow didn't shift. Compressed, settled, like something underneath had redistributed weight. Lena's hand moved to Martinez's shoulder, squeezed twice. He saw it too. She could tell by the way his breathing changed, shorter, controlled, combat-ready. "How many?" he whispered. "Can't tell. At least 2. Maybe more." "What are they doing?" "Watching us watch them." "That's smart. They know the storm gives them cover, but they also know we have sentries, so they're waiting, figuring out our pattern, looking for the gap." "There is no gap. We've got overlapping watch, thermal, radio check-ins every 30 minutes. Thermal's useless in this storm. Radio check-ins are predictable. An overlapping watch doesn't matter if both sentries are looking the wrong direction." Lena adjusted her scope fractionally. "They're not here to assault. They're here to sabotage. Hit something critical, communications, vehicles, supplies, and extract before we even know they were here." "You're guessing." "I'm extrapolating." "There's a difference." Martinez was quiet for a beat, then, "We need to report this. They'll ask if we have visual confirmation." "Do we?" "No." "Then they'll say we're seeing things." "Probably." "So what's the play?" Lena lowered her scope, turned to face him. Snow caked her goggles, turned her face into something ghostly. "You go back, wake Rowan, tell him what we saw. Don't mention me. Say you couldn't sleep, went for a walk, noticed the snow pattern. What are you going to do?" "Stay here. Keep eyes on." "Alone?" "Better than losing visual." "Voss, this isn't a debate, Martinez. If they move, someone needs to see it. That someone's me. You go. I stay. Simple." "Nothing about this is simple." "Then pretend it is." Martinez stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp, and disappeared into the storm. Lena was alone. The next 20 minutes were the longest of her life. Not because of fear. Fear she could manage. Fear had rules, boundaries, physiological responses you could control with breathing and training, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to let it win. No, it was the isolation that carved deepest. The knowledge that she was alone in a whiteout storm watching something nobody else believed existed, betting everything on a pattern of disturbed snow and a gut instinct that had been labeled paranoid so many times, she'd almost started believing it herself. Almost. Through her scope, the compression in the snow hadn't moved, but it also hadn't disappeared, which meant it wasn't wind, wasn't her imagination, wasn't a trick of light on ice. It was real. And it was waiting. Her radio crackled. "Voss, you copy?" Rowan's voice, tight, controlled, not happy. She keyed the mic. "Copy. Martinez says you've got eyes on a possible hostile approach via the Eastern Gorge." "Affirmative." "He also says you've got no visual confirmation, no thermal signature, no movement." "Correct." So what exactly do you have? Disruption in snow pattern consistent with concealed movement. Weight distribution suggests at least 2 personnel, possibly more, holding position approximately 30 meters east of the berm. Silence on the other end. She could picture Rowan in the command tent, Hale beside him, both of them weighing her words against her history, her reliability, her recent behavior. "Stand by," Rowan said finally. The radio went dead. Lena kept watching. Wind howled. Snow fell. The compression in the drift remained exactly where it was, which was impossible if it was natural. Wind didn't hold patterns steady. Wind erased them. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Her radio crackled again. "Voss, this is Lieutenant Hale." She keyed the mic. "Sir?" "I'm pulling you off the berm. Return to the tent immediately." "Sir, I have eyes on—" "You have eyes on weather and shadows. Martinez reported what you told him. I've got Chen and Kowalski moving to your position now to confirm. You're relieved. Return to the tent." "That's an order." Lena felt something cold settle in her chest, colder than the storm, colder than the weapon in her hands. "Sir, if I leave this position, we lose visual continuity. If they move during the transition, then Chen and Kowalski will see it. Move, specialist. Now." She wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that Chen and Kowalski didn't know what to look for, didn't have the training to read disruption and chaos, wouldn't see the threat until it was inside the perimeter. But orders were orders, and she'd already pushed her luck further than most soldiers got to push before facing court-martial. "Copy, moving now." She took one last look through her scope. The compression was still there, still waiting. She pulled back from the berm and started toward the tent. 30 meters in, the radio erupted. "Contact! Contact Eastern Gorge! Multiple hostiles, say again! Multiple!" Gunfire cracked through the storm. Sharp, distinct. The unmistakable bark of a K-pattern rifles answered by the heavier thump of M4 carbines. Lena spun, started running back toward the berm. Her radio screamed, "All units, we are under attack! Eastern perimeter breached! Repeat, eastern perimeter breached!" More gunfire, voices shouting, the organized chaos of soldiers snapping from sleep to combat in the space between heartbeats. Lena hit the berm at a full sprint, dropped prone, brought her rifle up. The scene was carnage. Chen was down, not dead, but hit, dragging himself backward while Kowalski laid suppressing fire into the storm. Muzzle flashes strobed through the white, close enough that Lena could see shapes now. 5 figures in white camouflage moving with tactical precision through the gorge. Not random insurgents, not militia, professional soldiers. Lena's scope found the lead figure, center mass, controlled breathing, squeeze. The M24 barked once. The figure dropped. She cycled the bolt, found the second target, fired. Another drop. The remaining 3 scattered, returned fire. Rounds snapped past her position, punched into the snow barrier, forced her to duck. Kowalski was shouting into his radio, "We need support! We need support now!" Lena popped up, fired again. Missed. The wind had shifted, throwing her aim off by inches, enough to matter at this range. She adjusted, fired again. Hit. 2 left. They were retreating now, tactical withdrawal, bounding overwatch, the kind of discipline that spoke to serious training. They'd been compromised, outgunned, caught in a position they couldn't hold, but they'd also gotten closer than they should have. Close enough to see the camp layout, close enough to count tents, close enough to report back exactly what was here and how to hit it properly next time. Lena tracked the last 2 figures until they disappeared into the storm. Didn't fire. No clean shot, and wasting ammo on maybes was how you ran dry when it actually mattered. The shooting stopped. For 5 seconds, there was only wind. Then the camp exploded into motion. Hale appeared on the berm 60 seconds later, flanked by Rowan and half the platoon. His face was pale, tight, the expression of a man who'd just had his worldview kicked in the teeth. He saw Chen first, gut shot, conscious but fading, Martinez already working on him with a trauma kit. Then he saw the blood in the snow where Lena's targets had fallen. Then he saw Lena, prone behind the berm, rifle still trained on the gorge. "Sit rep," he snapped. Kowalski answered, voice shaking. 5 hostiles, eastern approach. Voss took down 3. Other 2 withdrew. Chen's hit bad. Needs medevac. Hale's jaw worked. Rowan, get a bird inbound. Martinez, keep Chen stable. Everyone else, defensive perimeter now. They might come back. Soldiers scattered to positions. Rowan was already on the radio coordinating evacuation. Hale stepped close to Lena. You were supposed to be in the tent, he said quietly. I was heading there when the shooting started. You disobeyed a direct order. I responded to contact. You created contact by staying on the berm when I told you to leave. Lena finally turned to look at him. Her face was blank, professional, the kind of empty that came from too many arguments, too much doubt, too many people telling you that your instincts were wrong right up until the moment they saved everyone's life. Sir, with respect, they were already there. I didn't create anything. I just saw what nobody else wanted to see. Hale's expression flickered. Anger, maybe, or shame. Hard to tell in the dark. You put this entire unit at risk with your paranoia. I put myself at risk. The unit's alive because of it. Chen's bleeding out because you insisted on seeing ghosts. Chen's bleeding out because you pulled me off the berm 30 seconds before they moved. If I'd stayed, I would have seen them coming. Could have taken them out before they got close enough to shoot back. The words landed like slaps. Hale's face went hard. You're relieved. Permanently. Soon as we're back to base, you're being transferred out of this unit. Understood, sir. And Voss? Yeah? Next time you think you see something, keep it to yourself. He walked away. Lena stayed on the berm, watching the storm, rifle cold against her cheek. Rowan appeared beside her a few minutes later. You okay? He asked quietly. Fine. That was good shooting. Clean kills. Training. That was more than training. That was... He paused. You knew they were coming. Yeah. How? Because I've seen it before. Different place, different war, same playbook. They use weather as cover, approach during shift change, exploit the gap between sentries rotating, textbook infiltration. Where'd you see it before? Lena was quiet for a long moment. Kandahar. Night my spotter died. I was stateside, but I read the after-action report so many times I memorized it. They hit during a dust storm, got inside the wire before anyone knew they were there, killed 3 soldiers, injured 5 more, destroyed half our communication equipment. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't about fault. Was about learning, making sure it didn't happen again. So you sleep with your rifle because 3 seconds, that's the gap. 3 seconds between hearing the threat and being ready to stop it. My spotter didn't have 3 seconds. I've been carrying them ever since. Rowan nodded slowly. For what it's worth, you were right about all of it. Doesn't matter. I'm still getting transferred. Yeah, you probably are. They stood in silence, watching the storm. Somewhere in the dark, a helicopter's rotors beat against the wind. Chen's evac, inbound. You think they'll come back? Rowan asked. Not tonight, but they got what they came for. Which is? Intel. They know our strength now, know our layout, know we're vulnerable. Lena lowered her rifle. This wasn't an assault, it was reconnaissance. The real attack comes later. Then we need to be ready. You need to convince Hale of that. He just saw 5 hostiles breach the perimeter and 3 soldiers go down. I think he's convinced. He's embarrassed. There's a difference. Embarrassment makes people defensive, makes them double down on being right instead of learning from being wrong. That's pretty cynical. That's experience. The helicopter appeared through the storm, running lights strobing red and white against endless snow. It settled onto the makeshift LZ with mechanical precision, rotor wash turning the basin into a tornado. Martinez and Webb carried Chen to the bird on a stretcher. The kid was pale, unconscious, wrapped in so much gauze he looked like a mummy, but he was breathing. That counted for something. The helicopter lifted off 90 seconds later, disappeared into the storm like it had never existed. The camp settled back into watchful silence. Lena stayed on the berm until dawn, unauthorized, unordered, but unchallenged. Nobody told her to move. Nobody relieved her. They just let her watch. Because somewhere between the shooting and the medevac and the blood in the snow, 2nd Platoon had learned something important. Paranoia wasn't the problem. Ignoring it was. Morning came slow and gray.
The storm had passed, leaving Iron Hollow buried under fresh snow that sparkled in weak sunlight. The world looked peaceful, clean, like nothing violent had ever happened here. But the blood was still there if you knew where to look. Lena found it during her patrol of the eastern gorge, dark stains in white snow, already freezing into the landscape. 3 spots where bodies had fallen, shell casings half buried, boot prints leading back toward the ridge. She photographed everything with a small tactical camera, logged distances and angles, documented the approach they'd used. Standard post-contact procedure. The kind of work that would go into an after-action report that might, maybe, change how future units defended similar terrain. Or it would get filed away and forgotten. Hard to say which was more likely. Hale found her near the 3rd blood pool. "You're supposed to be in the tent," he said, documenting the contact site. "Standard protocol." "That's not your job anymore." "Whose job is it?" Hale didn't answer, just stood there looking at the blood, the casings, the story written in snow and brass and frozen plasma. "They were good," he said finally. "Yeah. Professional, well-trained, not random militia." "No. You knew that going in." "I suspected." "How?" Lena stood, brushed snow off her knees. The approach, the timing, the discipline. Random fighters don't move like that. They rush. Make mistakes, get sloppy. These guys were patient, methodical. They had a plan and they stuck to it even after being compromised. Which means they'll be back. With more people, better plan, harder to stop. Hale's expression was unreadable. "You think I made a mistake pulling you off the berm?" "I think you followed procedure. Procedure didn't account for what was actually happening." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got, sir." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm still transferring you out." "I know. Can't have a soldier who won't follow orders." "I followed orders, just disagreed with them." "Same thing in the military." "Shouldn't be." Hale almost smiled. Almost. "You're a pain in my neck, Voss. You know that?" "I've been told." "But you were right. About the threat. About the approach. About all of it." "Doesn't change anything." "No, it doesn't." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth. If I had 10 more soldiers like you, I'd probably court-martial half of them. But the other half would keep everyone alive." "Is that a compliment, sir?" "It's an observation." He walked back toward camp, boots crunching through snow. Lena stayed in the gorge, finishing her documentation. The sun climbed higher. The temperature rose fractionally, from unbearable to merely miserable. Her radio crackled. "Voss, this is Rowan. You got a minute?" She keyed the mic. "Go ahead." "Command tent. Now. And bring your rifle." She frowned. "Why?" "Just do it." The line went dead. Lena slung her rifle across her back and started toward camp. Something had changed. She could feel it in the air, the way soldiers looked at her as she passed. Not mockery, not suspicion. Something else. Something that felt uncomfortably close to respect. Munchet. The command tent was crowded. Hale sat at the center table, Rowan beside him. Webb, Kowalski, Martinez, the entire squad leadership packed into a space meant for half that number. They all looked up when Lena entered. "Close the flap," Hale said. She did. Hale gestured to an empty chair. "Sit." She sat, rifle across her lap, waiting. "We've got a problem," Hale began. "Chen's stable, but he's out for the duration. Sniper team's down to just you until we get a replacement spotter assigned." "Understood." "But that's not the problem." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I just got off sat phone with Battalion. They analyzed the contact last night, reviewed the photos you took, ran the shell casings. And those weren't random insurgents. That was a Tier 2 enemy recon element, professional, well-funded, operating under someone with serious tactical experience." The tent went quiet. "Which means?" Martinez asked. "Which means last night wasn't a probe. It was target acquisition. They're planning something bigger, and Iron Hollow is right in the middle of it." Lena felt ice settle in her gut. "What's the play?" "Battalion wants us to hold position, says reinforcements are inbound within 48 hours. And until then? Until then, we dig in, fortify,
Prepare for a potential assault. Webb spoke up. How many hostiles are we talking about? Unknown, but if they sent 5 for reconnaissance, the main force is probably 10 times that, maybe more. Kowalski swore under his breath. Rowan looked at Lena. You've been saying this was coming. Now command agrees. What do you recommend? Every head turned. Lena took a slow breath. This was the moment, the pivot point, where she stopped being the paranoid outlier and became something else. We reinforce the Eastern approach, she said carefully. That's their preferred avenue. They'll use it again. We layer defenses, wire, claymores, overlapping fields of fire. Make it a kill zone. What about the other approaches? Hale asked. We can't defend everywhere equally. We don't have the manpower. So we make one approach so dangerous they're forced to choose another. Then we defend that one just as hard. And if they split their force, hit us from multiple directions, then we're in trouble. But that requires coordination and communication. Every radio transmission is a chance for us to intercept. Every split element is weaker than the whole. We make them choose between efficiency and surprise. Hale nodded slowly. What else? We rotate sentries every 2 hours instead of 4. Keeps people alert. Harder to pattern our watch schedule. And we run random patrols outside the wire. Not on schedule, not predictable. Just enough to make them think twice about getting close. That's aggressive. Aggressive keeps us alive. It also exposes our people. Staying inside the wire exposes us too, just differently. Hale was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked at Rowan. Make it happen. Full defensive prep. Voss is tactical lead on Eastern Perimeter fortification. Lena blinked. Sir? You heard me. You saw this coming when nobody else did. You've earned a voice in how we stop it. I thought I was being transferred. You are, after we survive the next 48 hours. He stood. Everyone else, you've got your assignments. Move. The tent emptied quickly, soldiers filing out with purpose, momentum, the kind of energy that came from having a clear mission after days of uncertainty. Lena stood to leave. Voss? She turned. Hale was still seated, watching her. Yeah? Don't make me regret this. I'll try not to, sir. And Voss? Sir? Thank you for not saying I told you so. She almost smiled. Day's not over yet. She left the tent. Outside, the camp was already transforming. Soldiers hauling wire, digging fighting positions, stacking ammunition. The kind of organized chaos that happened when people realized the thing they'd been ignoring was about to kick down the door. Martinez fell into step beside her. Congrats. You went from crazy to tactical genius in about 12 hours. I'm the same person I was yesterday. Yeah, but yesterday nobody was listening. And today? Today they don't have a choice. They walked toward the eastern berm in silence. The sun was climbing higher now, burning off the last of the storm clouds. The basin looked beautiful in the light, pristine, peaceful, the kind of place you'd want to visit if it wasn't also the kind of place that might kill you. Lena stopped at the berm, looked out across the gorge. Somewhere beyond the ridge, the enemy was regrouping, planning, preparing for the next move. And this time, when they came, she'd be ready. They all would. The quiet soldier who slept with her rifle wasn't quiet anymore. And Iron Hollow was about to learn what happened when you finally listened to the warning you'd been ignoring all along. The wire went up in sections, triple-strand concertina, razor sharp, strung between steel stakes driven deep enough that the frozen ground cracked like glass under the sledgehammer. Lena worked alongside Webb and Kowalski, hands raw despite gloves, breath fogging in air that still bit hard even with the sun climbing. How much you want to run out? Webb asked, feeding another coil from the spool. 50 meters depth minimum, Lena said. Layered. Make them choose between cutting through or going around. Either way, they're exposed longer. Kowalski grunted, hammering another stake. 50 meters is a lot of wire. 50 meters is what keeps them from walking straight to our tents. She's got a point, Webb admitted. He glanced at her. You really think they're coming back tonight? I think they're coming back when we least expect it, which means we expect it all the time. That's exhausting. So's dying. Webb laughed, short, sharp. You're cheerful today. I'm practical. They worked in silence for a while,
the rhythm mechanical, stake, wire, tension, repeat. Around them, the rest of 2nd Platoon was transforming Iron Hollow into something that resembled a fortress. Fighting positions dug into the snow, sandbags stacked, ammo redistributed, fields of fire marked with range stakes every 25 meters. Martinez appeared with a crate of claymore mines. "Where you want these?" Lena straightened, surveyed the gorge. "Stagger them along the wire line, 15-meter intervals. Overlap the kill zones so there's no gaps. That's going to shred anything that comes through. That's the idea. What if friendlies need to exit that way? Then they better remember where we put them." Martinez set the crate down, started pulling mines. "You know, a week ago, everyone thought you were losing it. Now you're running the show." "I'm not running anything, just making suggestions." "Suggestions everyone's following. That's on them." "Is it, though?" He met her eyes. "You've got this whole camp rewired in 6 hours. That's not suggestions. That's command." Lena didn't respond. Didn't know how to. Command wasn't something she'd asked for or wanted. It was just the thing that happened when you were right enough times that people stopped questioning and started listening, which was its own kind of trap. "Voss!" Rowan's voice cut across the basin. She turned to see him waving from the command tent. "Yeah? LT wants you, now." She handed her gloves to Webb. "Finish the wire. Same pattern all the way to the northern boundary." "You got it." She jogged toward the command tent, rifle bouncing against her back. Soldiers moved aside as she passed, not out of fear, but something else. Recognition, maybe. The kind that came from seeing someone do the thing everyone said was impossible and making it look easy. Inside the tent, Hale was bent over a map, radio handset pressed to his ear. He looked up when she entered, gestured for her to wait. "Copy that, Battalion." "Understood. We'll advise when status changes. Out." He hung up, rubbed his face with both hands. "We've got a problem." "What kind?" "The kind where reinforcements aren't coming for 72 hours instead of 48. Supply convoy hit an IED 30 clicks south. Roads blocked. Air assets are diverted to medevac." Lena felt something cold slide down her spine. "So we're on our own. For 3 more days, maybe longer if the weather turns. And the enemy? Intelligence says they're massing. Thermal picked up movement in the hills, significant numbers, organized formation. Could be preparing for a coordinated assault. When? Unknown, but probably soon. They know we're fortifying. The longer they wait, the harder we are to crack." Lena moved to the map, studied the terrain. Iron Hollow sat in a natural bowl surrounded by ridges on 3 sides, defensible if you had the manpower, a death trap if you didn't. The eastern gorge was the obvious approach, but there were 2 others. A northern slope that was steep but climbable, and a southern route that involved open ground but offered concealment from a tree line about 200 meters out. "They'll feint," she said quietly. "What?" "They'll feint east to draw our attention, then hit from the north or south while we're focused on the gorge." Hale frowned. "How do you know?" "Because it's what I do. We've shown them our hand, fortified the eastern approach, made it a killing field. Smart commander sees that and changes the plan." "So what do you recommend?" Lena traced her finger along the northern slope. "We thin the eastern defense just enough to look committed, but not overextended. Rotate half those shooters to the north. Set up overlapping fire lanes. Make it so they can't take either approach without getting chewed up. That spreads us thin everywhere." "Yeah, but thick in one place means weak everywhere else. This way we're medium strength in 2 places. Forces them to commit fully to one approach or split their force. And if they split, then we make them regret it." Hale was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he nodded. "Do it. You've got tactical authority over defensive positioning. Coordinate with Rowan, make it happen." "Sir, this isn't a debate, Voss. You saw this coming. You've been right about everything so far. I'm done second-guessing." He met her eyes. "You wanted a voice. You've got it. Don't waste it." She nodded once, turned to leave. "And Voss?" "Yeah?" "If this goes sideways, it's on both of us, not just you." Something in her chest loosened slightly. "Understood, sir." She stepped outside, keyed her radio. "Rowan, you copy?" "Go ahead." "Need you at the northern slope. We're repositioning half the eastern defense.
On whose authority? LT's and mine. Pause. Copy. Moving now. The next 4 hours were a blur of movement and adjustment. Soldiers relocated from the gorge to the slope, grumbling but compliant. Fighting positions dug into frozen earth. Range cards updated. Fire lanes designated. The camp shifted from a fortress facing one direction to a fortress facing two. It still wasn't enough, but it was better than nothing. By the time the sun started dropping toward the horizon, Lena's hands were numb and her back ached and her eyes felt like sandpaper. She'd been awake for 36 hours straight, running on coffee and adrenaline and the particular stubbornness that came from knowing if you stopped moving, you'd collapse. Martinez found her near the northern slope, checking sight lines. You need to sleep. I'll sleep when this is over. That's what people say right before they make mistakes. Then I'll make mistakes tired instead of rested. That's not how it works. It's how I work. He was quiet for a moment, then, You know everyone's looking at you different now, right? I noticed. Does it bother you? Depends what they're seeing. A soldier who gives a damn, who doesn't quit. Who's keeping them alive? Lena turned to face him. They're keeping themselves alive. I'm just pointing out where to look. That's leadership, Voss. That's survival. Maybe they're the same thing. Before she could respond, the radio crackled. All units, this is command. We've got movement on thermal. Multiple contacts, Eastern Ridge. Estimate 20 individuals. Approaching slowly. Could be recon. Could be advance element. All personnel to combat positions. This is not a drill. The camp exploded into motion. Soldiers grabbed weapons, checked magazines, sprinted to assigned positions. The organized chaos of a unit snapping from standby to combat ready in under 90 seconds. Lena ran toward the eastern berm, Martinez beside her. Webb was already there, prone behind the wire, rifle trained on the gorge. You see anything? She asked. Negative. Thermal's picking them up, but I've got nothing visual. How far out? 300 meters, maybe less. Hard to tell with the terrain. Lena dropped prone beside him, brought her scope up. Through the optics, the gorge was a maze of shadows and snow. Nothing moved. Nothing stood out. But thermal didn't lie. They're testing us, she said quietly. What? They're moving just close enough to trigger thermal, see how we respond, gauging our reaction time, our positioning. So what do we do? Nothing. Webb turned to look at her. Nothing? We don't fire, don't reveal our positions. Just watch. Let them think they're invisible. That's risky. So showing them where all our shooters are. Webb hesitated, then nodded. Your call. Lena keyed her radio. All eastern positions, hold fire. Repeat, hold fire. Let them come. Wait for my signal. Acknowledgements crackled back one by one. The seconds stretched into minutes. Lena watched through her scope, breathing slow and controlled. Wind pushed snow across the gorge in lazy spirals. The light was fading, that golden hour glow that turned everything soft and deceptive. Then she saw it. Not movement, not shape, just a flicker of wrong, a shadow that shifted against the wind instead of with it. There, and there, and there. Multiple contacts moving with tactical discipline through terrain that should have made movement impossible. I count 6, Webb whispered. 8, Lena corrected. 2 more on the left flank using the rock outcrop for concealment. You sure? Yeah. What are they doing? Probing, looking for gaps in the wire, weak points in our defense. They're not here to fight. They're here to learn. And we're just going to let them? We're going to let them think they're getting away with it. She tracked the lead figure through her scope. Male, probably. Wearing winter camouflage that was actually pretty good, commercial grade, not surplus. Carrying an AK variant rifle, moving with the kind of confidence that came from experience. He stopped about 200 meters out, crouched behind a drift, pulled something from his pack. Binoculars. He was glassing the camp, counting tents, marking positions. Lena's finger rested alongside the trigger guard. 1 shot. That's all it would take. Drop him and scatter the others. Send a message that Iron Hollow wasn't soft. But messages were expensive, and right now information was worth more than bodies. She let him look. After 2 minutes, he put the binos away, signaled to someone Lena couldn't see, and the whole element started withdrawing. Slow, careful, professional. They disappeared into the gorge like ghosts. The radio crackled. Command to all units. Contacts withdrawing. Stand down from combat alert, but maintain heightened watch. Report any further movement immediately. Lena lowered her rifle, let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Webb sat up. That was it? They just looked and left? They got what they came for. Which is confirmation that we're ready, that we're not sleeping, that hitting us is going to cost. So they'll leave us alone? No, they'll just bring more people. Webb swore softly. This is going to be bad, isn't it? Yeah. How bad? Ask me tomorrow, if we're still alive to talk about it. But that darkness came like a curtain drop, sudden, total, unforgiving. Temperature plummeted 15 degrees in an hour. The kind of cold that turned breath to ice crystals and made metal burn skin even through gloves. Lena sat in the command tent nursing coffee that tasted like burnt oil. Across the table, Hale and Rowan were bent over the map, marking the positions where thermal had picked up contacts. 8 confirmed, Rowan said, possibly more we didn't catch. And they withdrew without engaging, Hale added. That's reconnaissance, not harassment. Which means the real push comes later, Lena said. Both men looked at her. How much later? Hale asked. Tonight, maybe early morning, whenever they think we're most tired, most complacent. We've got rotating watch. Someone's always awake. Being awake's not the same as being alert. 3 a.m., 4th hour of watch, cold so bad you can't feel your fingers. That's when mistakes happen. That's when they'll come. Rowan leaned back. So what do you suggest? We rotate watch every 90 minutes instead of 4 hours. Keeps people sharp. And we run active patrols inside the wire. Not outside, that's suicide. But movement keeps the blood flowing, keeps the mind engaged. That's a lot of activity for a defensive posture. Defensive doesn't mean passive. Hale nodded slowly. Make it happen. And Voss, get some sleep. That's an order. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Sir, not a debate, 3 hours minimum. Rowan will wake you if anything changes. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to stay awake, stay vigilant, stay ready. But her body was starting to make decisions her brain couldn't override. Hands shaking slightly, vision blurring at the edges, the warning signs of a system running on empty. 3 hours, she said finally. Good, dismissed. She stood, left the tent, walked toward her cot in the squad tent. Around her, the camp was quiet but alert. Soldiers in fighting positions, sentries scanning the darkness, the low hum of generators providing just enough light to see but not enough to silhouette. Inside the tent, most of the platoon was asleep or trying to be. Martinez was awake, cleaning his rifle by headlamp. Thought you'd be up all night, he said quietly. LT ordered me to sleep. And you're actually listening? Trying to. She lay down on her cot, rifle beside her, always beside her, and closed her eyes. Sleep came in fragments. Shallow, restless, the kind where your brain never fully shuts down. She dreamed of Kandahar, dreamed of her spotter, kid named Jackson, 22 years old, couldn't grow a full beard, had a girlfriend back home who sent him letters that smelled like strawberry lip gloss. Dreamed of the moment she'd heard he was gone. Not even in combat, just a supply run. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong outcome. She jolted awake 90 minutes later, pulse hammering. The tent was darker, quieter. Martinez was asleep now, headlamp off. Lena sat up, checked her watch. 02:37 hours. The witching hour. When human alertness bottomed out and mistakes multiplied, she grabbed her rifle, slipped outside. The cold hit like a physical blow. Wind had picked up again, not storm level, but enough to make the world feel hostile. She pulled her balaclava tight, started walking the perimeter. Everything looked normal. Sentries at their posts, wire intact, nothing moving in the darkness beyond. Too normal. Her instincts screamed. She keyed her radio. Voss to command. Rowan's voice came back immediately. Go ahead. I'm at the eastern berm. Something feels wrong. Define wrong. I don't know yet. Just wrong. Pause. You want me to sound alert? No, not yet. Let me confirm first. Copy. Standing by. Lena moved along his wire line, scanning the darkness. Thermal showed nothing unusual. Standard optics showed even less. But the feeling wouldn't leave, that crawling sensation between her shoulder blades that said danger was close. She stopped, closed her eyes, just listened. Wind, her own breathing, distant generator hum. And beneath it, silence. The wrong kind of silence. Her eyes snapped open. All units, this is Voss. We've got... The world exploded. 3 things happened simultaneously. Muzzle flashes strobed from the northern slope, the eastern gorge erupted with automatic weapons fire, and something detonated near the vehicle park with enough force to shake the ground. Coordinated assault, multiple vectors, exactly what she'd predicted. Lena's radio exploded with traffic. Contact north! Taking fire from the gorge! Vehicle park is hit. Say again. Vehicle park is hit. She sprinted toward the northern slope. That's where the main push would come. She knew it in her bones. The eastern fire was suppression. The vehicle park was distraction, but the north was the real threat. She reached the fighting positions to find Webb and Kowalski already engaged, firing controlled bursts into the darkness. "How many?" she shouted over the gunfire. "Unknown!" Webb yelled back. "They're coming up the slope in waves." Lena dropped prone, brought her scope up. Through the optics she counted 10 figures advancing up the slope in textbook formation, bounding overwatch, suppressive fire, using the terrain for concealment. Professional, disciplined, dangerous. She found the lead element, center mass, fired, drop. Cycled the bolt, found the next target, drop. The enemy adjusted, started laying down heavier fire. Rounds snapped past her position, punched into the snow barrier, forced her to duck. "They're pushing hard!" Kowalski screamed. "We need support!" Lena keyed her radio. "Command, this is Voss. Northern slope is the main assault. Estimate 15 to 20 hostiles, organized formation, heavy weapons. Request immediate reinforcement." "Copy." Hale's voice came back, remarkably calm. "Shifting eastern defense to support north. Hold position." "Roger." She popped up, fired again. Another drop. But for everyone she took down, 2 more appeared. They were committed now, all in on breaching the northern perimeter. Martinez appeared beside her with a SAW, started laying down suppressive fire in long controlled bursts. Tracers cut through the darkness like angry hornets. "They're not backing off," he shouted. "Good," Lena shouted back. "Means we're hurting them." She kept firing. Mechanical, precise. The M24 barked rhythm into chaos. Boom, cycle, acquire, boom, cycle, acquire. Then she saw it. Movement on the eastern flank of the northern assault. A small element, maybe 4 people, breaking away from the main group, moving fast toward a gap in the wire she hadn't noticed before. Infiltration team, going for the command tent. "Martinez!" She grabbed his shoulder. "Eastern flank, 4 contacts, moving to breach." He swung the SAW, saw them, opened up. But they were already through, using smoke for concealment, disappearing into the camp interior. Lena made a decision in half a second. "Hold this position," she yelled to Webb. "Do not let them take this slope." "Where are you going?" "Hunting." She rolled backward out of the fighting position, came up running. The camp interior was chaos, soldiers running toward fighting positions, medics hauling supplies, officers shouting orders. And somewhere in that confusion, 4 enemy combatants were moving toward the command tent with purpose. Lena sprinted through the maze of tents, rifle up, scanning for threats. Her breath came in controlled bursts despite the sprint. Combat breathing, automatic, drilled into muscle memory. There. Shadow moving wrong near the supply depot. She dropped to a knee, fired. The shadow dropped. Movement to her left. She spun, fired again. Another drop. 2 down, 2 left. "Contact inside the wire!" Someone screamed. "Contact inside the wire!" Lena moved toward the command tent, every sense heightened. The world had narrowed to sight lines and threat assessment, and the weight of the rifle in her hands. She rounded a tent corner and came face to face with the 3rd hostile. Time slowed. He was young, maybe 25, eyes wide, a K-47 coming up fast. Lena was faster. She fired from the hip. The round caught him center mass, punched him backward. He dropped, weapon clattering into snow. She moved past without stopping. One left. The command tent was ahead. Hale was inside, coordinating defense. If the last hostile reached it, Lena put on a burst of speed, rounded the tent, and found the last enemy combatant standing at the entrance, rifle trained on something inside. "Drop it!" Her voice cut through the chaos. The hostile turned, older, scarred, professional eyes that calculated angles in microseconds. He didn't drop it. He swung toward her. Lena fired. The round took him in the shoulder, spun him. He stumbled, but didn't fall, started bringing his weapon back up. She fired again. He dropped. Lena moved forward, kicked the rifle away, checked for pulse. Gone. She keyed her radio. "Command tent secure. 4 hostiles neutralized inside the wire." "Copy," Rowan's voice came back. "Northern assault is breaking. They're withdrawing. Eastern Gorge? Quiet. It was a feint, like you said. Vehicle park? Damaged, but operational. No casualties." Lena let out a breath, lowered her rifle. Around her, the camp was settling, gunfire tapering off, voices shifting from combat orders to damage assessment. The assault had lasted maybe 6 minutes total. It felt like an hour. Hale emerged from the command tent, face pale but steady. He looked at the body near the entrance, then at Lena. "That was close," he said quietly. "Too close. You stopped them. We stopped them. I just cleaned up the breach." "That's not what I saw." He stepped closer. "I saw you predict their approach, organize the defense, and personally eliminate 4 hostiles who made it inside our wire. That's not cleaning up. That's command." Lena didn't know what to say to that. Martinez appeared, breathing hard. "Northern slope is clear. Webb's doing body count now. Looks like we dropped at least 10, maybe more." "And our casualties?" Hale asked. 3 wounded, none critical. They're with the medics now." "Could have been worse," Rowan said, joining them. "Could have been over," Lena said quietly. "If they'd reached the command tent, if they'd killed leadership, the whole defense would have collapsed." "But they didn't," Hale said firmly. "Because you stopped them." She met his eyes, saw something there that hadn't been before. Not gratitude, not even respect, trust. "Get some rest, Voss," he said. "We'll debrief at first light." "Sir." "That's an order. You've earned it." She nodded, turned to walk away. "And Voss?" She stopped. "About that transfer." "Yeah?" "I'm canceling it. You're staying with 2nd Platoon." Something in her chest unclenched. "Understood, sir." "Now get out of here before I change my mind." She walked through the camp in a daze. Soldiers nodded as she passed. Some called out thanks. Martinez fell into step beside her. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." "You don't look okay." "I will be." They reached the squad tent. Most of the platoon was still at fighting positions, but a few were inside checking gear, processing what had just happened. Webb looked up when she entered. "Heard you went full Rambo on those infiltrators." "It wasn't like that. 4 hostiles, 4 kills, that's pretty Rambo." "It was necessary. It was impressive." Lena sat on her cot, started field stripping her rifle. The routine was calming, familiar. Her hands knew the movements even when her brain was still catching up. "Can I ask you something?" Webb said. "Sure." "Why'd you do it?" "Stay on watch when Hale ordered you to the tent. Keep pushing when everyone thought you were paranoid. Risk your career on a hunch." Lena was quiet for a long moment, hands working the bolt assembly automatically. "You ever lose someone who didn't have to die?" she asked finally. "Yeah, everyone has." "Then you know. You know what it feels like to think if I'd just been there, or if I just said something, or if I just listened to the thing that felt wrong. That feeling doesn't go away. It just stays. Lives in your chest. Reminds you every single day that preparation matters, that 3 seconds matters. Your spotter. Yeah, it wasn't your fault. I know. But knowing doesn't change the fact that he's gone and I'm here. So I carry it. The weight. The responsibility. The refusal to let it happen again, if I can help it." She looked up at him. "That's why I sleep with my rifle. That's why I don't rack it. That's why I can't stop being the person everyone thinks is paranoid. Because paranoid is just another word for prepared. And prepared is what keeps people alive." Webb nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're paranoid." "Me too." She finished reassembling the rifle, lay back on her cot,
weapon across her chest. Outside, the camp was settling into watchful quiet. Sentries at posts, medics tending wounded, officers tallying damage and writing reports that would work their way up chains of command until they became statistics in someone's database. But here, in this tent, in this moment, they were still alive. All of them. And that was worth carrying the weight. Lena closed her eyes, rifle cold against her ribs, and finally, for the first time in 72 hours, let herself sleep. Outside, in the frozen darkness of Iron Hollow, the enemy was gone. But the night wasn't over yet. Sleep lasted 90 minutes before the tent flap opened, and Rowan's voice cut through the darkness. "Voss, up! Command wants you!" She was awake instantly, not the groggy half-awareness of civilian sleep, but the sharp snap of a soldier who'd learned that the transition from unconscious to combat-ready could mean the difference between alive and dead. Her hand found the rifle before her eyes fully opened. "What happened?" she asked, sitting up. "Nothing, yet. But Battalion's on the sat phone, and they want to talk to you specifically." "Why?" "Don't know. Hale didn't say. Just said, get you to the command tent 5 minutes ago." Lena pulled on her boots, grabbed her rifle, followed Rowan into the pre-dawn cold. The sky was that particular shade of dark blue that meant sunrise was coming but hadn't committed yet. Around them, the camp was quiet, but alert. Sentries still at posts, the occasional cough or boot scrape the only sounds beyond wind. Inside the command tent, Hale stood with the sat phone handset pressed to his ear, face tight with whatever he was hearing. He saw Lena enter, gestured for her to wait. "Yes, sir. Understood. She's here now." He held out the handset. "Colonel Brennan, Battalion Commander, wants to talk to you directly." Lena took the phone, felt every eye in the tent on her. "Specialist Voss, sir." The voice that came back was older, rougher, the kind that had been shouting orders for 30 years and didn't waste words. "Voss, I've been reading Lieutenant Hale's after-action report from last night's engagement. Says you predicted the assault vector, organized the defense, and personally neutralized 4 hostiles who breached the wire." "That's accurate, sir." "Also says you've been sleeping with your rifle for a week, ignored direct orders to rack it, and were nearly transferred out for insubordination." "That's also accurate." "And now Hale's recommending you for a commendation. Bronze Star, possibly. Wants to keep you on as tactical advisor for defensive operations." Lena glanced at Hale. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I wasn't aware of that, sir." "Well, now you are. Here's my question, Specialist. Are you a tactical genius or just lucky?" The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Neither, sir," Lena said carefully. "I just pay attention to the things most people ignore." "And what things are those?" "Patterns, disruptions. The way snow drifts when it shouldn't. The way silence sounds when it's wrong. Small details that don't make sense until you put them together." "That's tactical observation. Where'd you learn it?" "Kandahar, Fallujah, Mosul." Every deployment where staying alive meant noticing the thing that didn't belong before it killed you. Brennan was quiet for a moment. "Lieutenant Hale says you lost your spotter in Kandahar. IED on a supply run." "Yes, sir." "And you blame yourself even though you weren't in country when it happened." "I don't blame myself, sir. I just learned from it." "How so?" 3 seconds. That's the gap between being ready and being dead. My spotter didn't have 3 seconds, so I carry mine with me, all the time, ready or not. Another pause. Then, "Hale wants you promoted to sergeant. Wants you running defensive operations for his platoon." Lena felt her breath catch. "Sir, I'm not qualified. Don't give me that. I've read your file. Marksman badge, combat action badge, 2 deployments, top of your class at sniper school. You're overqualified if anything. The question is whether you want it." Did she? Want the responsibility, the weight, the expectation that came with being the person everyone looked to when things went wrong? No. But did she want soldiers dying because nobody was paying attention to the details that mattered? Even less. "I want to do the job that needs doing, sir." That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Brennan laughed, short, sharp. "Fair enough. Here's what's happening, Voss. Reinforcements arrive at Iron Hollow in 6 hours. You're being attached to Battalion Intelligence as a tactical consultant. Your job is to teach other units how to see what you see,
How to read terrain, predict threats, notice the things that don't belong. Sir, I'm a sniper, not an instructor. You're whatever I need you to be, and right now I need someone who can keep soldiers alive by teaching them to stop ignoring their instincts." He paused. "You have a problem with that?" "No, sir." "Good. Put Hale back on." Lena handed the phone back. Hale took it, listened for 30 seconds, said, "Yes, sir," twice, and hung up. The tent was silent. Then Rowan spoke. "So, tactical consultant. That's a hell of a promotion from paranoid sniper everyone wants to transfer." "I'm still the same person I was yesterday." "Yeah, but yesterday nobody was listening." Hale cleared his throat. "Voss, a word. Outside." She followed him into the cold. Sunrise was starting now, faint gold bleeding across the eastern horizon, turning the snow from blue to pink to white. It would have been beautiful if the basin wasn't still littered with shell casings and blood. Hale walked a few meters from the tent, stopped, turned to face her. "I owe you an apology," he said. Lena blinked. "Sir?" "I misjudged you. Called you paranoid when you were prepared. Threatened to transfer you when I should have been listening. Nearly got this entire platoon killed because I was too focused on following procedure instead of following instinct." He met her eyes. "I'm sorry. That was poor leadership on my part." "Sir, you were doing your job, following regulations, maintaining unit cohesion. That's not poor leadership. It is when regulations conflict with reality. And reality was that you saw a threat nobody else could see, prepared for it despite facing ridicule and discipline, and saved lives because you refused to back down." He paused. "That takes courage. More than I showed." Lena didn't know what to say. Apologies from officers were rare. Apologies that felt genuine were rarer still. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "You weren't wrong to question me. I was breaking rules, ignoring orders, acting in ways that looked unstable from the outside. If I were in your position, I'd have done the same thing." "Would you?" "Probably. Maybe. I don't know." She looked out across the basin. "Command's hard. You have to balance individual judgment against unit cohesion. Have to trust people while also holding them accountable. I don't envy that position. But you're being asked to step into it. As a consultant, not a commander, there's a difference." "Is there?" Hale studied her. "You organized the defense last night. Positioned the wire, placed the claymores, rotated the watch schedule. Soldiers followed your orders without question. That's command, Voss, whether you want the title or not. I was just making suggestions." "No, you were making decisions, and people trusted those decisions because you'd earned that trust by being right when everyone else was wrong." He turned to face the sunrise. "That's what leadership is. Not rank, not authority. Just the willingness to make the hard call and accept the consequences." Lena was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I ask you something, sir?" "Sure." "Why'd you recommend me for a commendation? You could have just filed the report, moved on. Why go out of your way?" Hale smiled slightly. "Because 3 soldiers are alive right now who wouldn't be if you hadn't stopped that infiltration team. Because you saw a threat I dismissed and prepared for it anyway. Because you taught me something about the difference between following rules and doing what's right." He met her eyes. "And because I don't want you thinking that being right means you were wrong to speak up. The military needs more soldiers like you, not fewer. Soldiers who break rules, soldiers who understand that rules exist to protect people. And when rules stop doing that, they're just obstacles." Movement near the command tent. Martinez was waving at them. "Sir, sat phone again. Says it's urgent." Hale nodded, started walking back. "Get some breakfast, Voss. Real food if we've got any left. You've earned it." "Yes, sir." She watched him go, then turned toward the mess tent. The camp was waking up now, soldiers emerging from tents, checking weapons, starting the routines that defined military life. Coffee brewing. Gear being cleaned. Quiet conversations about the night before. Webb found her near the coffee urn. "Heard you're getting promoted. Consultant position, not promotion." "Same difference. Not even close." "You gonna teach me how to see threats in snowdrifts?" "If you pay attention." "That's a big if." He poured coffee that looked like motor oil. "Seriously, though, what you did last night, stopping those infiltrators, that was something else. It was necessary. It was heroic.
It was reflex, training, muscle memory. Nothing heroic about it. Webb studied her over the rim of his cup. You really don't see it, do you? See what? How everyone's looking at you different now, like you're someone they can count on, someone who gives a damn. I've always given a damn. Yeah, but we didn't know that. We just saw the weird sniper who wouldn't let go of her rifle. Didn't understand it was because you'd lost someone, because you were carrying weight the rest of us couldn't see. Lena sipped her coffee. It tasted terrible.
She drank it anyway. Jackson, my spotter, he used to say something. Fear's just your brain trying to keep you alive. Listen to it. Everyone thought he was being dramatic, but he was right. Fear, paranoia, whatever you want to call it, it's just pattern recognition screaming that something's wrong. Most people ignore it because they don't want to seem afraid. But sometimes being afraid is what keeps you breathing. Is that why you sleep with your rifle? Part of it. The other part is just, if something happens, I want to be ready. Not scrambling, not searching, just ready. And now you're going to teach that to other soldiers. Gonna try. Think they'll listen? Some will, some won't. That's how it works. Martinez appeared with a tray of what looked like powdered eggs and toast. Breakfast, such as it is. They sat at one of the folding tables, ate in silence for a while. Around them, the mess tent was filling up. Soldiers grabbing food, comparing notes about the night, processing what had happened in the way soldiers always did, with dark humor and careful distance. Kowalski dropped into the seat across from Lena. So, war hero, how's it feel? I'm not a war hero. You killed 4 enemy combatants in close quarters. That's pretty heroic. That's 4 people who were trying to kill my friends. Nothing heroic about it. Modest too. I like it. But he bit into toast that looked like cardboard. Seriously though, you think they'll come back? Yeah. When? When we least expect it, which means we expect it all the time. That's exhausting. So's dying. You said that before. Still true. Rowan appeared in the tent entrance. Voss, command tent, now. She stood, left her half-eaten breakfast, followed him outside. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing's wrong. Battalion intelligence wants a video debrief. They're setting up the link now. A what? Video call. They want you to walk them through how you identified the threat, organized the defense, everything. Said they're building a training protocol based on your methodology. I don't have a methodology. Well, you're about to develop one. Inside the command tent, a laptop had been set up on the table, webcam aimed at an empty chair. On screen, a woman in her 40s with major's insignia and sharp eyes was waiting. Specialist Voss? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Major Sarah Reeves, Battalion Intelligence. I've read Lieutenant Hale's report and Colonel Brennan's summary. Impressive work last night. Thank you, ma'am. Walk me through it. Start with the moment you first suspected hostile activity. Don't leave anything out. For the next 40 minutes, Lena talked. Described the silent dogs, the brushed snow, the compression patterns that looked wrong, the way thermal didn't catch everything and why human observation still mattered. The major listened, asked pointed questions, took notes. When Lena finished, Reeves sat back. You're describing a sensory observation protocol that's not in any manual I've read. It's not in any manual, ma'am. It's just paying attention. To what specifically? Disruptions. Things that don't fit the pattern. Most soldiers are trained to look for threats, shapes, movement, obvious danger. But by the time you see obvious danger, you're already reacting instead of acting. The trick is seeing the threat before it becomes obvious. And how do you train that? I don't know if you can. Not formally. It's just exposure, experience. Seeing enough situations that your brain starts cataloging what normal looks like. Then when something's not normal, you notice? But you notice things your entire platoon missed. Because I was looking for them. Everyone else was assuming we were safe. I was assuming we weren't. That's paranoia. That's preparation. Reeves smiled slightly. Fair point. Here's what I need, Specialist. I need you to document everything, every observation technique, every pattern you track, every detail you think matters. We're building a training module for defensive operations in hostile terrain. Your insights will be the foundation. Ma'am, I'm not an instructor. You are now. Colonel Brennan's orders. You'll be attached to Battalion as a tactical consultant, rotating through platoons teaching defensive observation protocols. She paused. Unless you have an objection. Did she? Teaching meant taking what lived in her head, the instincts, the paranoia, the weight of carrying Jackson's memory, and putting it into words other people could understand and use. Meant confronting the things she'd been doing automatically for years and making it systematic. But it also meant fewer soldiers walking into situations blind. Fewer Jacksons bleeding out because nobody saw the threat coming. No objection, ma'am. Good. You'll receive official orders within 24 hours. In the meantime, start documenting. Everything. I want a full tactical breakdown of last night's engagement by end of day. Yes, ma'am. The screen went dark. Lena sat in the silence, processing. Tactical consultant, training rotations, teaching soldiers to see what she saw. Hale was watching her. You okay? I don't know. Ask me in a week. For what it's worth, you'll be good at this, better than you think. How do you know? Because you give a damn. That's more important than any training manual. The tent flap opened, and Martinez stuck his head in. Sir, reinforcements are inbound. ETA 30 minutes. Copy. Get everyone ready to brief the incoming units. Martinez disappeared. Hale turned to Lena. You should be there when they arrive. Let them see the soldier who held this camp together. I didn't hold anything together. We all did. You led. There's a difference. I'm not a leader. You keep saying that, but everyone else seems to disagree. The reinforcements arrived in a convoy of 8 vehicles, 2 platoons plus support staff, medical, and a captain who looked about 12 years old despite the rank insignia. His name was Morrison, and he moved with the careful confidence of someone who'd read every manual but hadn't lived them yet. He found Lena near the eastern berm, examining the wire. Specialist Voss. She turned. Sir? Captain Morrison. I'm taking over defensive operations here. Heard you had quite a night. Yes, sir. Coordinated assault, multiple vectors. We held them off. So I've been told. Walk me through your defensive setup. For the next hour, Lena showed him everything. The wire placement, the claymore positions, the overlapping fields of fire, the observation points that gave the best sight lines into the approaches. Morrison listened, asked intelligent questions, took notes. When they finished, he stood looking out across the basin. This is solid work, Specialist. Textbook, almost. It's practical, sir. Textbook gets you killed if the enemy doesn't follow the same book. Fair point. He turned to face her. I understand you're being reassigned to Battalion Intelligence. Yes, sir. Tactical consultant. That's a significant role. You comfortable with it? Not particularly, but I'll do it anyway. Morrison smiled. Honesty. I like that. Most specialists would just say, yes, sir, and hope for the best. Hope's not a strategy, sir. No, it's not. He extended his hand. Good luck, Voss. And thank you for keeping 2nd Platoon alive until we got here. She shook it. Just doing my job, sir. That's more than a lot of soldiers can say. He walked back toward the command tent, leaving Lena alone at the berm. She stood there for a while, watching the sun climb higher, burning off the last of the morning cold. The basin looked peaceful now. Hard to believe less than 12 hours ago it had been a war zone. Boots crunched in snow behind her. She turned to find Rowan. Transport's leaving in an hour, he said, taking you to Battalion HQ. Already? Colonel wants you there ASAP. Says there's 2 other units that need your assessment. Guess I don't get a break. Soldiers don't get breaks, just different assignments. He paused. You gonna miss this place? Iron Hollow? Not particularly. I meant 2nd Platoon. Lena was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I will. They're gonna miss you too. Even Webb. Especially Webb. Who else is he gonna mock? He'll find someone. He always does. Rowan looked out across the basin. For what it's worth, you changed this unit. Made us better. Made us pay attention to things we'd been ignoring. I just pointed out the obvious. No, you pointed out what everyone was missing because we didn't want to see it. That's different. That's valuable. He turned to face her. I've been doing this for 15 years. Seen a lot of soldiers come and go. Most of them are just names in a roster. But you? You're the soldier who sleeps with her rifle and sees threats nobody else can see. That's the kind of person who saves lives. Or gets court-martialed for insubordination. Sometimes it's both. He smiled. Take care of yourself out there, Voss, and don't let them turn you into something you're not. What am I? A soldier who gives a damn. Don't lose that. They walked back to camp together. The hour passed quickly, saying goodbyes, packing gear, transferring files to Morrison's team. Martinez gave her a chocolate bar he'd been hoarding. Webb shook her hand and didn't make a single joke. Kowalski saluted, which was weird but somehow appropriate. Hale was the last. He met her near the transport vehicle. Got everything? He asked. Yeah. Good. He handed her a folder. Your commendation paperwork. Already filed with Battalion. Should be official within a week. Sir, you didn't have to. Yeah, I did. You earned it. Don't diminish that. Thank you. Thank you, Voss, for teaching me something about the difference between being right and doing right. He extended his hand. It was an honor serving with you. She shook it. Same, sir. She climbed into the transport. The engine rumbled to life. Through the window, she watched Iron Hollow recede. The tents, the wire. The soldiers who'd gone from mocking her to trusting her in the span of a week. Her rifle rested across her lap. Cold. Familiar. Ready. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You really sleep with that thing? Yeah. That's dedication. That's survival. Same thing? Not even close. They drove in silence through terrain that looked exactly like every other frozen wasteland Lena had served in. White, hostile, beautiful in a way that could kill you if you stopped respecting it. Her phone buzzed. Text from a number she didn't recognize. Specialist Voss. Major Reeves. Attached are your new orders. Report to Battalion HQ by 1600 hours. 3 units need defensive assessment before week's end. Welcome to the team. 3 units. Different terrain. Different threats. But the same fundamental problem. Soldiers who didn't know what to look for until it was too late. She could fix that. Maybe. If they listened. And if they didn't? Then she'd be the paranoid consultant everyone wanted to transfer, just like she'd been the paranoid sniper everyone wanted to dismiss. Same story, different chapter. But this time, she'd have the weight of rank behind her, the authority to make people listen even when they didn't want to. She thought about Jackson, about the moment she'd heard he was gone, about the decision she'd made standing in a frozen field, holding a flag that used to cover his casket. Never again, not on my watch, not if I can help it. That decision had turned her into the soldier who slept with her rifle, who broke rules when rules meant death, who saw patterns nobody else could see because the alternative was watching people die preventable deaths. And now she'd teach that to others, turn paranoia into protocol, instinct into instruction. The weight she'd been carrying alone into something distributed across dozens of soldiers who might, just might, stay alive because of it. The transport hit a bump. Her rifle shifted. She adjusted it automatically, muscle memory keeping it secure. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Jackson hadn't had them. But because of what she'd learned from his absence, hundreds of other soldiers might. That was worth the wait, worth the ridicule, worth everything. The transport drove on through the frozen landscape, carrying her toward whatever came next. And Lena Voss, the quiet soldier who wouldn't let go of her weapon, was ready. Battalion headquarters sat in a valley that looked like every other military installation Lena Maj had ever seen. Prefab buildings arranged in neat rows, guard towers at the corners, concertina wire marking boundaries nobody crossed without permission. The transport rolled through the checkpoint at 15:45 hours, 15 minutes early. The driver pulled up to a building marked Intelligence. This is you! Lena grabbed her pack, her rifle, stepped out into cold that felt different from Iron Hollow's, less hostile, more bureaucratic, the kind of cold that came from being surrounded by people who fought battles with reports instead of bullets. Inside, a specialist at the front desk looked up. Voss? Yeah. Major Reeves is expecting you. 2nd floor, 3rd door on the left. Lena climbed stairs that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee, found the door, knocked. Come in. Major Reeves sat behind a desk covered in maps, reports, and a laptop showing thermal imagery from somewhere Lena didn't recognize. She looked up, gestured to a chair. Voss, good. Sit. Lena sat, rifle across her lap. Reeves studied her for a moment. You look exhausted.
I am exhausted, ma'am. When's the last time you slept more than 2 hours straight? 4 days ago. That's not sustainable. Neither is dying, ma'am. Reeves smiled slightly. Fair point.
Here's what's happening. 3 units in this sector have reported hostile probing similar to what you experienced at Iron Hollow. Nothing major yet, but the pattern's concerning. I need you to assess their defensive postures, identify vulnerabilities, recommend improvements. How long do I have? 2 days per unit, 6 days total. Then we debrief and I decide if this consultant position becomes permanent. And if the units don't want to listen to a specialist telling them how to do their jobs?
Then they explain to Colonel Brennan why they ignored the soldier who predicted and stopped a coordinated assault. Reeves leaned forward. You have authority here, Voss. Use it. Authority without rank is just noise, ma'am. Not when it's backed by results. Iron Hollow could have been a massacre. It wasn't, because of you. That carries weight. Lena was quiet for a moment.
Can I ask something, ma'am?
Sure.
Why me? You've got analysts, tacticians, people with actual training in defensive assessment. Why pull a specialist sniper into this role?
Reeves sat back.
Because analysts see data. Tacticians see doctrine. You see people, how they move, how they think, how they miss the obvious because they're looking at the wrong things. That's not something you can teach in a classroom. That's experience. Instinct. The kind of observation that only comes from being close enough to the danger that you learn to smell it coming. That's just paranoia, ma'am. No, paranoia is seeing threats that aren't there. You see threats that are there but hidden. That's intelligence. And right now I need that intelligence applied to units that don't know what they're missing. She pulled a folder from her desk, slid it across. First assignment, 3rd Platoon, Charlie Company. They're 40 clicks north defending a supply route. Standard setup, competent leadership, but they've been reporting strange activity, movement at night, disturbed snow, missing supplies, nothing they can confirm. Sound familiar? Yeah. Go fix it. Transport leaves at 0600 tomorrow. You'll have 2 days to assess, recommend, and implement changes before moving to the next unit. And if they push back, then you push harder. You're not there to make friends, Voss.
You're there to keep soldiers alive. Lena took the folder. Understood, ma'am. One more thing. Reeves pulled out another document. Your promotion came through. You're a sergeant now, effective immediately. Lena stared at the paper. Sergeant, E5. The rank where you stopped being just another soldier and became the person responsible for other soldiers. Ma'am, I didn't ask for this. Nobody asks for responsibility, it just finds you. Reeves stood, extended her hand.
Congratulations, Sergeant Voss. Don't make me regret it. Lena shook it. I'll try not to, ma'am. She left the office in a daze. Sergeant, tactical consultant. 6 days to prove she could do what Iron Hollow suggested she could. And if she failed, she pushed the thought away. Failure meant soldiers dying. That wasn't acceptable. A barracks had been assigned to her. Small room, single bed, desk, locker. Spartan, but private. She dropped her pack, set her rifle on the desk, sat on the bed. The weight of the day hit her all at once. The debrief, the promotion, the expectations, the pressure of being the person everyone suddenly believed in after weeks of being the person everyone wanted to dismiss. Her phone buzzed. Text from Martinez. Heard you made sergeant. Congrats. Don't let it go to your head. Then Webb. Sergeant Voss. Has a nice ring to it. Try not to be too responsible. Then Rowan. Proud of you. Now go teach those other units to stop being stupid. Even Hale. Well deserved. Make us look good. She typed back generic thank yous, then set the phone down. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that made you think too much about the things you'd rather forget. She picked up her rifle, started field stripping it. The routine was calming, familiar. Her hands knew the movements even when her brain was spinning. Bolt out. Barrel clear. Chamber inspected. Jackson used to say she had a ritual problem, called it obsessive. But he'd also trusted her with his life, which suggested he understood the difference between obsession and preparation. She wondered what he'd think of this. Her becoming the person who taught others to see threats, turning the weight of his absence into something useful, probably make some joke, something about how paranoia finally paid off, how being the weird one was just early adoption of eventually standard practice. She finished reassembling the rifle, lay back on the bed with it across her chest. Tomorrow she'd start. 2 days per unit. 6 days total. 18 days if you counted travel and debrief. After that? Unknown. Maybe the consultant position became permanent. Maybe she went back to being just a sniper. Maybe something else entirely. But tonight, she was just a soldier in a quiet room, holding a rifle that had become more familiar than most people, trying to figure out how to turn instinct into instruction. She closed her eyes, slept for 6 hours straight, the longest stretch in a week. 3rd Platoon's camp sat on a low ridge overlooking a supply route that looked exactly like every other supply route Lena had ever seen. Dirt road, thin tree coverage, open sight lines that made convoy movement visible for kilometers. Lieutenant Marcus Green met her at the perimeter. Early 30s, infantry background, the kind of officer who'd earned his commission the hard way. Sergeant Voss? Yes, sir. Lieutenant Green, Baltorai, Washampetos. Welcome to our little corner of nowhere. He gestured toward the camp. Major Reeves said you're here to assess our defensive posture. That's correct, sir. And you're qualified to do this because there it was. The skepticism. The question behind the question, who the hell are you to tell me how to run my platoon? Because I predicted and stopped a coordinated assault at Iron Hollow 6 days ago, sir, using observation techniques that aren't in any manual. Green's expression shifted slightly. I heard about that. Impressive work. Thank you, sir. But this isn't Iron Hollow. We've got different terrain, different threats, different tactical considerations. Which is why I'm here, sir, to assess your specific situation and provide recommendations tailored to it. He studied her for a moment. Fair enough. What do you need? Full tour of your perimeter, access to your watch logs, sit-downs with your sentries, and permission to ask uncomfortable questions. Define uncomfortable. Well, questions that highlight vulnerabilities you might not want to acknowledge. Green almost smiled. You don't pull punches. Punches don't keep people alive, sir. Honest assessment does. Then let's get started. The next 6 hours were intense. Lena walked every meter of the perimeter, studied sight lines, examined defensive positions, interviewed sentries. She found gaps. Not major ones, but enough. Wire placement that left blind spots. Watch rotation that created predictable patterns. Observation posts positioned for comfort rather than effectiveness. By evening, she had a list of 12 recommendations. She found Green in his tent. Sir, got a minute? Sure. What'd you find? She laid out the list. He read through it, expression darkening with each line. This is pretty critical, he said finally. This is necessary, sir. You're saying my platoon's defensive setup is inadequate. I'm saying it's standard, which means it's predictable, and predictable gets people killed. We haven't had any incidents. Yet. Lena met his eyes. Sir, with respect, you've been reporting strange activity, movement at night, disturbed snow, missing supplies. That's reconnaissance. They're studying you, learning your patterns, waiting for the right moment. Or it's just wildlife and paranoia. Is it worth betting your soldiers' lives on that assumption? Green was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. What do you recommend? Implement these changes. Tonight. Don't wait. Don't phase them in. Just do it. That's asking a lot. It's asking for what keeps you alive. He looked at the list again. Some of these are going to be unpopular. Moving observation posts means soldiers lose shelter. Changing wire placement means extra work. Rotating watch more frequently means less sleep. Unpopular beats dead. Does it? Ask me after the next engagement. If we're both still alive to have the conversation? Green almost laughed. You're persistent. I'm realistic, sir. He stood, grabbed his radio. All squad leaders to command tent. Now. Within 10 minutes, the tent was packed. Green introduced Lena, handed out copies of her recommendations. The reaction was immediate. This is ridiculous, one sergeant said. We've been running this setup for 3 months without incident. 3 months without confirmed incident, Lena corrected. You've had activity, you just haven't connected it to a threat yet. Based on what evidence? Based on patterns. Your supply discrepancies follow a timeline. Someone's testing your inventory checks. Your disturbed snow appears in the same locations. Someone's mapping your blind spots. Your night movement happens during watch transitions. Someone's timing your rotations. Or it's wind and animals and coincidence. Maybe. But if it's not, and we ignore it, people die. I'd rather be paranoid and alive than relaxed and dead. Another sergeant spoke up. Who put you in charge? Major Reeves. Colonel Brennan. And the fact that I stopped an assault, everyone else missed. Lena kept her voice level. I'm not here to take over. I'm here to help. But if you'd rather stick with what's comfortable instead of what's effective, that's your call. Just own the consequences. Silence filled the tent. Green broke it. We're implementing these changes. Tonight. All of them. Any objections? A few grumbles. But no outright refusals. Good. Let's move. The next 36 hours were brutal. Repositioning wire, moving observation posts, adjusting watch rotations. Soldiers complained, dragged their feet, made it clear they thought this was unnecessary. Lena didn't argue, just worked alongside them, hauling wire, digging positions, demonstrating why each change mattered. By the second night, the complaints had mostly stopped. Not because people were convinced, just because they were too tired to argue. Lena was checking the northern observation post when the sentry, a private named Dixon, spoke up. Sergeant, can I ask something? Sure. You really think something's coming? I think something's always coming. Question is whether we see it first. That's depressing. That's reality. Dixon was quiet for a moment. What happened at Iron Hollow? I heard rumors, but nobody's giving details. Lena sat beside him, rifle across her lap. Coordinated assault. 3 vectors. Infiltration team breached the wire while we were focused on the main attack. 4 hostiles made it inside the perimeter. I stopped them before they reached the command tent. By yourself? Yeah. That's intense. That's preparation. I saw the threat coming because I was looking for it. Everyone else thought I was paranoid. Until the shooting started. And now you're here teaching us to be paranoid too. I'm here teaching you to pay attention, to trust your instincts, to notice the small things that don't belong before they become big things that kill you. Dixon nodded slowly. Okay, I can work with that. Good. Now tell me, what have you noticed tonight that feels wrong? Nothing. Everything's quiet. Too quiet? He paused, thought about it. Actually, yeah. Usually we hear animals, foxes, rabbits. Tonight it's been silent for the past hour. Why do you think that is? Could be weather, could be... He stopped. Could be something out there scaring them away. Yeah. You think someone's watching us right now? Maybe. Or maybe the animals are just tired. Point is, you noticed. That's what matters. She stood, keyed her radio. All posts, this is Voss. Anyone else notice reduced animal activity in the past hour? 3 confirmations came back. Copy. Stay alert. Could be nothing. Could be something. Report any changes immediately. She turned to Dixon. Good catch. Keep watching. What are you going to do? Same thing I always do. Stay ready. Nothing happened that night, or the next day. But the platoon's attitude shifted. Soldiers started asking questions instead of complaining, started noticing details instead of ignoring them. On her last day, Green found her near the perimeter. You're heading out tomorrow? Yes, sir. Next assignment. We'll miss you. Well, some of us will. Others are glad to see the hard-ass leave. I'm not a hard-ass, sir. I'm just invested in people not dying. Same thing to soldiers who like their comfort. He paused. For what it's worth, you were right about the patterns, about the observations. We found evidence last night, boot prints outside the wire, exactly where you said to look. Someone's been watching us. Have you increased patrols? Doubled them. And implemented everything on your list, plus a few things we came up with ourselves. That's good, sir. Shows you're taking it seriously. We are. Because you made us see what we were missing. He extended his hand. Thank you, Sergeant, for caring enough to be the person nobody wanted to listen to. She shook it. Just doing my job, sir. No, you're doing more than that. You're changing how we think about defense. That's worth more than any tactical manual. The pattern repeated at the next 2 units. Skepticism, resistance, pushback. Then gradual acceptance as soldiers started seeing what she saw. Noticing the details that mattered. Understanding that paranoia and preparation were just different words for the same survival instinct. By the end of day 6, Lena had assessed 3 platoons, implemented 47 defensive improvements, and trained 68 soldiers in observation techniques that would, hopefully, keep them alive. She returned to battalion headquarters exhausted, wired, running on fumes and stubbornness. Major Reeves met her in her office. How'd it go? Better than expected, worse than I'd hoped. Explain. All 3 units implemented the changes, but only after I pushed hard enough that they had no choice. The resistance wasn't to the ideas, it was to accepting that they'd been missing things. That's ego. That's human nature. Nobody wants to admit they've been blind to threats. But they admitted it eventually, because I made them see it, showed them the patterns, the evidence, made it impossible to ignore. Reeves nodded slowly. That's the skill I need, not just seeing threats, making others see them too. She pulled out a document. Your performance review, based on reports from all 3 unit commanders. Want to know what they said? Not particularly. Too bad, I'm telling you anyway. She read, Green says you're abrasive but effective. Captain Morrison from the 2nd unit says you're relentless and necessary. Lieutenant Fan from the 3rd says you're the most paranoid soldier he's ever met, and that might be what saves his platoon. Those are mixed reviews. Those are exactly what I expected. You're not here to be liked, Voss. You're here to be right. And you are. So what now? Now we make this permanent. You're assigned to battalion intelligence as a full-time tactical consultant. You'll rotate through units, assess defenses, train soldiers, identify vulnerabilities. Your job is to be the paranoid voice that keeps people from getting comfortable. And if I don't want it? Reeves raised an eyebrow. Do you not want it? Lena was quiet for a moment. Did she? Want the responsibility, the weight, the constant pressure of being the person who saw danger everywhere and had to convince others it was real? No. But did she want soldiers dying because nobody was paying attention? Even less. I want to do what keeps people alive, ma'am. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Reeves smiled. Good. Because that's exactly what I need. Welcome to the team, Sergeant Voss. Permanently. 3 months later, Lena stood in a briefing room at division headquarters, facing 20 officers and senior NCOs. The room was packed, standing room only, people crammed against walls, every eye on her. Colonel Brennan stood at the front. Settle down. We're here today because Sergeant Voss has been running a tactical observation protocol across 12 units in this division. Results have been significant. Sergeant, you want to walk us through it? Lena stepped forward, felt the weight of all those eyes. A few months ago, this would have terrified her. Now it just felt necessary. 3 months ago, I was a specialist sniper everyone thought was paranoid. Today I'm standing here because paranoia, properly channeled, is just advanced threat detection. She clicked to the first slide. These are the 12 units I've assessed. All reported low-level anomalies. Disturbed snow, missing supplies, night movement, things they dismissed as weather, wildlife, coincidence. Next slide. This is what we found when we actually investigated. Boot prints, surveillance equipment, evidence of systematic reconnaissance across all 12 positions. Murmurs rippled through the room. The enemy's been studying us, learning our patterns, mapping our vulnerabilities. Not for immediate assault, for planned operations when conditions favor them. Next slide. Since implementing observation protocols and defensive adjustments, we've identified 17 separate reconnaissance attempts. Stopped 14. The 3 we missed taught us how to refine the protocols. She went through the data, showed the patterns, demonstrated the techniques, made it impossible to ignore. When she finished, the room was silent. Then a major in the back spoke up. This is standard intelligence gathering. Nothing new. You're right, sir. The techniques are standard. What's new is teaching soldiers to recognize them at the ground level, before they become intelligence reports, before they become casualties. That's what sentries are for. Sentries watch assigned sectors. They don't pattern analyze. Don't connect dots across multiple observations. Don't see the threat until it's obvious. By then it's too late. So you're saying our current defensive doctrine is flawed? I'm saying it's incomplete. We train soldiers to react to threats. I'm teaching them to see threats before they have to react. That's a significant claim. That's a proven result, sir. 12 units. 0 casualties from infiltration. Compared to the 3 units in adjacent sectors that didn't implement the protocols, 7 casualties, 2 killed in action, 5 wounded. The room went quiet again. Brennan stood. Sergeant Voss's protocols are now division standard. Every unit will receive training within the next 60 days. Implementation is mandatory. Any questions? A few, mostly logistical. How to scale the training, how to measure effectiveness, how to integrate with existing doctrine. Lena answered them all, clearly, confidently. The soldier who used to avoid speaking up because nobody listened was gone, replaced by someone who spoke because people needed to hear it. After the briefing, officers and NCOs surrounded her, asked follow-up questions, requested training schedules, wanted her protocols documented. She answered everything. Professional, patient, the person they needed her to be. When the room finally emptied, Brennan approached. Hell of a presentation, Sergeant. Thank you, sir. You've changed how this division thinks about defense. That's not a small thing. Just trying to keep people alive, sir. You're doing more than that. You're teaching them to keep themselves alive. That's leadership. I'm just a sergeant, sir. For now. But I've put you in for officer candidate school, if you're interested. Lena blinked. Sir, I'm not officer material. Why not? Because I break rules when they don't make sense. Question orders when they're wrong. Prioritize results over protocol. That's exactly what makes good officers, he smiled. Think about it. No pressure. But you've got the potential for more than sergeant, if you want it. He left her standing alone in the empty briefing room. Officer, lieutenant, the kind of rank that came with real authority, real responsibility, real weight. Did she want it? She didn't know, but she had time to figure it out. That evening, Lena found herself back in her barracks room. Same small space, same sparse furniture, but somehow it felt different, less temporary, more permanent. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hale. Saw the briefing report, making us proud. Then Rowan. Division standard. Nice work. Martinez. Still sleeping with that rifle? Webb. Officer school? Don't get too fancy on us. She smiled, typed back responses. Then opened her laptop. Pulled up a blank document. Started typing. Tactical Observation Protocol. Advanced Training Module. By Sergeant Lena Voss. She wrote for 3 hours, documented everything, every technique, every observation pattern, every lesson learned from Iron Hollow and 12 subsequent assessments. Made it systematic, repeatable, something other instructors could teach even if she wasn't there. When she finished, it was 47 pages, comprehensive, detailed, the kind of document that would outlive her assignment, her career, maybe even her life. She saved it, sent it to Major Reeves. Got a response 2 minutes later. This is excellent. Forwarding to Division Training Command. Well done. Lena closed the laptop, stood, walked to the window. Outside, the base was settling into night. Guard towers lit, patrols moving, sentries at posts. The same routine that happened at every military installation in every country in every war. But now, maybe, some of those sentries would notice the things that didn't belong, would trust their instincts, would see the threat before it became a crisis. Because one paranoid soldier refused to let her spotter's death be meaningless. Because one soldier who slept with her rifle turned survival instinct into doctrine. Because one person who everyone thought was broken proved that sometimes broken is just another word for awake. She picked up her rifle, started field stripping it. The routine was meditation now, calming, centering, bolt out, barrel clear, chamber inspected. 3 seconds. That's all it took to go from unprepared to ready. Jackson hadn't had 3 seconds. But because of him, because of what his absence taught her, thousands of soldiers now would. That was the weight she carried. And she'd carry it for as long as she needed to, because that's what soldiers did. They carried the weight. For themselves. For each other. For the people who couldn't carry it anymore. She reassembled the rifle, lay down on her bed, closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd start training the next group of soldiers, teaching them to see what she saw, to trust what they felt, to understand that paranoia and preparation were just two names for the same thing. And maybe, just maybe, some of them would live because of it. That was enough. That was everything. Outside her window, the night was quiet, peaceful, the kind of quiet that used to make her nervous. Now it just made her ready. Because Lena Voss, the soldier who slept with her rifle, who saw threats nobody else could see, who turned mockery into methodology, had learned something important. The quietest warning is often the one that saves you, if you're strong enough to trust it, and brave enough to make others listen. The quietest warning is often the one that saves you, if you're strong enough to trust it,